Welcome back, everyone. Well, this is a big week. Not only is it the release week for Victoria 3, which is a game that I've been looking forward to for a long time, but it's also the week that All Quiet on the Western Front comes out on Netflix, and they've dropped a full trailer for the movie. I haven't watched the trailer yet. I have read the book, so I'm very familiar with the story. So I'm kind of curious to see some things in this. I've decided I'm not going to watch the movie until I'm over there. I'm leaving this time next week. I will be in Ypres, in Belgium, on the Western Front. So I thought that I would wait those couple of extra days to watch the movie from the place where these events took place. So it is a fictional story, but it's a fictional story that's written in the framework of real life events to give us some insight into those events. So I'm excited to be able to kind of break this trailer down. We're going to watch it. I haven't seen it yet. And if I see some things that I recognize or that I think are worthy of pointing out, I'll probably pause and talk about those things. So understand that's what I'm planning to do with this reaction, is kind of break down the trailer a little bit. So let's go ahead and dive in. Just look at that. I mean, just that opening shot of this trailer, you see the tanks coming across. The Germans didn't have many tanks. They had like maybe 20 of them. The Allies made hundreds and hundreds of tanks. So it's primarily something the Germans were on the receiving end of. So this is probably French or British or American forces that are marching across. But this is the desolation that marked a World War I battlefield. This almost makes me think it's Passchendaele because of all the craters filled with water. Yeah, those are French soldiers, so it's not Passchendaele. So again, there's just a little bit of a glimpse. You see the soldiers laying over here, and they're removing their coats. So probably to reuse that. Remember, the Germans are under a blockade, and so all materials, all supplies are severely restricted because there's certain things they just can't get. But seeing those coffins is just, it's something else. Taking the boots off.
Paul Bäumer.
Möchte noch nicht loslegen.
I can't wait to get going. And boy, that tells you a lot about not just World War I, but any war. Early on, these young men are just all excited to go out and fight for their Kaiser, for their king, for their country. And then they experience war, and that all changes. And it looks like these guys are singing. And, so you see the green, you see them marching off to war, and there are a lot of examples of the singing happening, and one in particular I'm thinking about right now because I'm going to Ypres. At the First Battle of Ypres, the Germans formed this entirely new army, the Fourth Army, that's made up of these newly trained soldiers. Actually, they're not even fully trained. They've got like partial training. It's a reserve army. It's all these young guys. They refer to it sometimes as like a student army. These are young guys who aren't professional soldiers, and they hurl them into the battle at Ypres. And the Germans have gone to describe the massacre, the deaths of these young people, as the massacre of the innocents. And there's these descriptions of them going into battle singing, kind of showing their youth and innocence, only to be slaughtered. Now the reality sets in. Now that I'm a little curious about. He says we're on the Western Front now, and he takes his gas mask off because the first use of poison gas was on the Western Front. It was at the Second Battle of Ypres, April 22nd, 1915. French colonial soldiers and Canadian soldiers are gassed, and there's this 4-mile wide line that opens up in the Allied line that the Germans could just walk through, but they don't exploit it enough. So I don't know why they would say take your gas mask off, you're on the Western Front. And they had these dugouts. The Germans had much better ones than the Allies did, where they would be down there and they would largely be protected from the artillery. But that gives you a glimpse of the horror of undergoing some of these artillery barrages that took place. It is a masterpiece of a book. It's incredible.
Mehr als 40.000 Tote allein in den letzten Wochen.
Es ist vorbei.
Oh, here come the tanks. Could you imagine for a second? Tanks aren't a thing until World War I. Could you imagine the first time you saw one of those on the battlefield, what you would be thinking? It's not like for us where we know they exist, right? That was a brand new thing in warfare. And like I said, the Germans didn't have many of them. It was mostly an Allied thing. And you see all the mice. Rats were a huge problem in trenches that they dealt with all the way along. Shows the true face of
Im Namen der
World War I.
Menschlichkeit,
Yep.
ich bitte Sie den Waffenstillstand.
Ferdinand
Vous avez
Foch.
72 heures.
So it shows them looking at, it's 10:45. The Germans had been pushing for an armistice in the fall of 1918, and the Allies finally agreed to it. It's signed in the early morning hours of the 11th, I think like 4 or 5 in the morning. The Germans want it to take effect immediately, but the Allies insist on it not taking effect until 11 a.m. because they want to keep attacking. They want to keep pushing, and there are thousands of casualties in between when the armistice is signed and when it takes effect, going right up to the last minute. The generally agreed upon last soldier to die on the Western Front was Henry Gunther, who was an American who dies less than a minute before the armistice takes effect.
Pour accepter nos conditions.
It's Hindenburg.
Ich werde nicht kapitulieren.
It's got to be Hindenburg.
Meine Mutter wollte nicht, dass ich in den Krieg ziehe. Ich wollte ihnen zeigen, dass ich das kann.
Ach, Paul. Ja, mal nach Hause kommen.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and that's the thing. All Quiet on the Western Front is not meant to be something that glorifies war. It's quite the opposite. It is meant to show the horrors of war and show just the psychological effect that the war had on soldiers. It's written from a German perspective about German soldiers, and so I'm glad they have chosen to keep it in the German language. This is not a movie with a happy ending. I'll just say that up front. I don't want to give anything away, but it's not a movie that has a happy ending where you leave the end of the movie feeling good. It leaves you feeling just that much more awful about this war. Fighting that French soldier. And if I remember right, there is a scene in the book where he's out on a patrol, Paul, who's kind of the main figure, and he kills a French soldier. And he's there for several hours afterwards, and he's like asking for forgiveness from this French soldier he's killed. He's a young kid. He's never had to do anything like that. And the first time you do it, it would probably make you sick. Taking a human life is not an easy thing to do, but you get hardened to it throughout war, just like with anything that you do. Once you do it enough, when I work for Rachel's Challenge and people ask me all the time, how do you tell these stories without tearing up? Well, I've told them hundreds of times. It's not that they're not emotional and that they shouldn't bring out that emotion, but when you do something over and over and over again, you get desensitized to it. And warfare is no different.
Ich hab Angst vor dem, was kommt. Du musst jetzt tapfer.
So you see the flamethrowers now, and so these are French soldiers using flamethrowers on the Germans in the trenches. And flamethrowers were a thing, and the early flamethrowers would have been used from really close up like this. But as the war went on, just like with anything, technology got better, and they started being able to shoot them from further away without having to walk right up to the trenches like that.
Du musst jetzt tapfer sein. Für die es nicht geschafft haben. Für uns alle.
Oh, it looks so good. It looks so good. As somebody who's passionate about the history of World War I, I'm really looking forward to seeing a modern cinematic type epic view of the Western Front. We got that a little bit with 1917, but this seems a little more gritty, a little more real, a little more wide in scope instead of just showing an individual story. I hope we get more of these stories. I really do. But boy, that looks super good. I cannot wait. Comes out this week. Like I said, comes out in 4 days. So I guess that's Friday it comes out. I leave Sunday afternoon to go to the Western Front. So I will probably either watch it on the plane on the way over there or just wait until I'm there and watch it from my hotel room in Ypres. Let me know your thoughts. I'll put a link to the trailer if you want to watch it without my commentary. It's got over 5 million views already, which is amazing. And I cannot wait to see it. Thanks for watching.